understood your question properly. So you are saying that there are some animals which are black. So talking about animals, which animal you're talking
For
about? Because
example, dog.
dogs, like mammals you're talking about. So mammals are black or white on the basis of their fur color, right? Mammal
Yeah.
have hair. So dogs and cats have hair. Those are the hair which become their fur. So their fur have a color. The hair have a color. Now you're saying that you have seen a dog which was born black and then later turned on white. Or you are
Not
saying that why,
completely white, but then white and black.
and when it was born it was,
Completely black.
and then it started having some white patches in the hair.
Yeah.
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 So in that specific condition, and like I'm not sure because without looking at the dog and a fine examination, we cannot say what is happening. But mostly dogs and cats are mosaic for their fur color. So for example, in human have one skin color throughout. And if they don't have that, if they have pigmentation and depigmentation patches, that's a skin disorder, melanin disorder, right? A pigment disorder.
Yeah.
But in cats and dogs, inherently, like to begin with, they can be mosaic for their um, fur color, because they might get a different gene from the mother and a different gene from the father, and these genes express differently in different cell populations in their skin body, like the body. So hair come from the skin. So the pigment that these hair will carry, whether the hair will be black, brown, gray, white, whatever, that is decided by that cell's gene from where that hair follicle is coming out. So they are different. So throughout their skin they are mosaic means they have different pattern. So different cells have different genes. One, in some the mother's will gene will activate, in some the father's. That's how the patches come. Now your
Okay,
question
but
is,
yeah, how does it change afterwards?
yes, now your question is that it was born completely black, now it has white patches. Now it could be because it had those patches at birth also, but those hair follicles were very few and you could not notice that. One could be that possibility. The other is after it started growing, it had some disordered condition for that black pigment. So loss of black pigment leads to white hairs. Okay,
And
that could also
how
be a,
does
yeah.
the loss of black pigment happen?
In the similarly, like in humans after birth, like at the birth they are normal. After birth they start getting these white patches sometimes. Have you heard of this disease?
Yeah, but I don't know how it happens.
Mutation, simply cells mutate and some certain cells start losing the pigmentation making
After
machinery
birth?
after birth. Yep, some kind of disorder or some kind of depigmentation starts happening. It can also, in some cases it's also reversible. It depends on nutrition and diet. If you are low on certain things in your diet, you can start getting some white patches on the skin. And again, if you are good, if you are balanced with the diet, it goes. But if it is genetic, it will be by birth. Okay. Or
Yeah.
you had something, for example, they always say that you should never mix and eat milk with fish. So fish cod liver, as some fish chemicals react with milk and start causing these depigmentation patches on the body. So they say that never have fish with milk. So those kind of thing can also be a reason.
How does that affect?
How does what affect?
Like eating fish and milk together affect the
So
pigmentation?
certain food material do not, thank you so much. Certain food material do not go very well together. For example, the chemicals. Like if you're asking detailed mechanism, that I'm also not very well sure of at the moment. I have to look up at it, and I'm sure that it will be very detailed and it will take a lot of time. But just to tell you the brief, there are many food that do not go well together. So all the food you cannot mix. For example, alcohols. About the alcohol also, it said that do not mix alcohol. It's not good. You will have bad side effects. Now mostly those bad side effects are you start vomiting, your head becomes high, severe headache, etc. For food, it can be the chemical particles in one kind of food that do not go very well with the other kind of food and causes some reactions in the body that can lead to some disordered condition. But those are mostly reversible. it can get treated because they are not influencing your genetics. But if it is a genetic issue because of which you are getting these pigmentation, that becomes a little that's a little tricky.
Thank you very much. I understood.
Okay.
Yeah.
The same kind of so for mouse fur coat color also people have done certain experiments to understand. And these and I've already, so let me connect this to your syllabus. You must be wondering, so you said that's out of syllabus. Actually it's not. Nothing in biology is out of 11th and 12th syllabus, because that's where you learn, you get a gist of almost every aspect of biology. You touch upon it if you don't do it in detail. I told you about pleiotropic genes, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the fur or the coat color or the fur color of cats, dogs, mouse, mammals basically are controlled by pleiotropic genes. Okay, and they can be mosaic for that pleiotropic gene, like at different tissues of their different part of their skin. So humans are not mostly mosaic; they have one skin color throughout. Mosaic condition is a disorder in humans, but in mouse, cats, and dogs, it is very common. It's not a disorder; it can just happen. That's why you will see cats with patches of white and black, tabby cats, all different sorts of cat. Correct?
Yes, sir.
So it's connected to a syllabus. That's pleiotropic gene and gene mosaicism. Mosaicism you have not studied in your syllabus, but just know. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. Zad has written moths. I don't know what does it mean, but he writes things like these one word things in the chat. Yes, Zad, moths. What about moths? Just moths, he has written. I think it's cryptic. He wants to signal me something. Okay, so let's begin quickly. Anyone would like to just give a quick summary of pneumonia and the viral diseases? And today I'll be focusing more on immune system. I'll be starting with immune system along with these diseases because that's a very important part of this chapter. So quickly, who would like to volunteer? Anyone who would like to volunteer for a quick summary? Someone should volunteer, right?
So I'll give a go.
Yes, great. Sir,
Yeah.
please.
So in the last class, we started off with the pneumonia, and the causes for pneumonia are Streptococcus pneumoniae and Haemophilus influenza, also known as
Yeah.
RSV.
Yes,
Yeah,
these two are,
yeah.
both of these two are bacteria, okay?
Exactly. And then the symptoms for this pneumonia is cough, breathlessness, sweating, high increase in temperature, and the lips, nails become bluish gray in color.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the mechanism for pneumonia is that the virus, for example, Streptococcus pneumoniae, infects the
It's not a
alveoli.
virus, it's a bacteria.
Bacteria, my bad. Yeah, infects the alveoli, ear sacs, and hence this alveoli is filled with fluid and the fluid is secreted by the infected cells inside the alveoli.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then the lungs are not functionable. And the diagnosis for pneumonia is a chest X-ray.
Yeah, you can diagnose it through a chest X-ray. You can also, so pneumonia is easy to diagnose through a bacterial swab as well. So you just look for the population of the bacteria culture, X-ray, or also you can diagnose it through symptoms. So mostly if the symptoms are very severe and you know it, then they immediately start the treatment and then send the sample for culturing and or do a X-ray, quick X-ray. Yes, correct. Yes, continue.
Then we discussed a bit about diphtheria and as well dysentery. Not much because we had done it before as well. So
Yeah.
So I'll just tell about it. So bacterium rhine diphtherin had been the cause for diphtheria, and as well the symptoms are increase in temperature and green coloring.
Which bacteria did you say for diphtheria?
The rhine diphtheria.
Corynebacteria. It's C. diphtheria. Corynebacteria, diphtheria. So the name of the bacteria is diphtheria only. Remember, we always we always name an organism with the species name. Okay, genus. So in Corynebacteria, there can be many species. One is diphtheria that causes diphtheria as a disease. Similarly, pneumonia is the bacteria in Streptococcus. Now there can be many Streptococcus. Streptococcus is the genus. Okay, so Streptococcus pneumoniae causes pneumonia. Similarly, it's Corynebacteria, diphtheria. So if you forget Corynebacteria, it's fine. Remember just C. diphtheria.
Yeah, then
Okay.
then green color, gray coloring in the throat region, and swollen in neck. And then to diagnose this, we can use a swab test in the throat or the nose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then then we discuss about plague, and plague is caused by Yersinia pestis.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's high fever, pain, and shock as well sometimes. Then we discuss about viral diseases. The first we discuss about the recent COVID-19, also called SARS-CoV-2. Yeah, and it was we discuss about the naming of COVID-19. CO stands for corona, VI stands for virus, and I stands for induced, and D stands for disease.
Yep.
And the 19 for the year 2019 when it was spread all over. And then we discuss about common cold, which is caused by rhinovirus. And it is the most common human viral infection. And the common cold only affects us in the nasal cavity and the nose, and doesn't affect the lungs or any of the respiratory tract.
Yeah, so in short, we can, yes, sorry to interrupt you. In short, we can say that they affect the upper respiratory tract. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Not the lower respiratory tract.
Yeah, that's the reason they're not fatal.
Yes, right. It's not fatal, and also it can on its own also it can just go away.
Okay. And then we have a runny nose and clogging of the nose and fatigue during this viral infection. And then you gave a question to ponder upon, which is, why can't we protect ourselves against common cold when it happens several times to us?
Yes, why can't we do that?
Yeah, and one more question is that why do the doctors give us antibiotics when we have a viral infection?
Exactly. So anyone figured it out? I said
So I asked my bio sir. Yeah, I asked my bio sir. He didn't give a very clear answer, but he told me that
he's your bio sir, so he should give a clear answer, right?
Yeah, but
Okay.
I don't think he had the proper answer, but he said me that this common cold or the virus, rhinovirus, when we get infected by it, it is actually a viral infection, but it could get into a severe bacterial infection as well later upon, to suppress the infection at the first stage, he said. That's what he said. I didn't get a clear answer from him.
So I think I don't know, like if he could not convey it to you properly, or you could not understand it properly. But I think what he tried to tell you was, it's not like viral infection will bring bacterial infection with it. That's not true. Viral infections are viral infections, but yes. So he answered the second part, that why we get antibiotics for a viral infection. So in any viral infection, especially common cold, we are on a viral fever, including common cold or a viral cold, we get on an antibiotic regime because our immune system is already compromised with a viral attack, right? And there's nothing much about that virus that we can do. As I told you, we don't have very good antivirals with us at the moment. And the problem of not having good antivirals is the way viral machinery hijacks our cell and the way they replicate. So we have very less targets to, or they mutate very, very fast. As I told you in the genetic, in the evolution part, viruses mutate the fastest, right? You all have seen it with COVID. Within just less than 3 years, it has mutated a lot, correct? So it's going to be 3 years. It will be 3 years in December for COVID. And in 3 years, we have seen so many different, genetically different strains with different virulence, pathogenicity, and transmissibility and death rate, etc. So viruses mutate very, very fast. So that's one difficulty in targeting viruses and killing them effectively. So we don't have antivirals. So what we want ours, and we know that these viruses are not going to kill the system if we keep protecting the system from the symptoms. So that's simple. So when doctors cannot kill the virus, they allow our immune system to kill it. But in that meantime, we also want our immune system to just fight with the virus. So to just as a preventive measure, when our immune system is already compromised and low, when it's beaten down already, we would not like any bacterial infection to override it. Correct? It's not like we have a bacterial infection, that's why we are taking antibiotics. We are taking it to not allow any bacterial infection to occur, and if there is any in the blood in any minute amount, that's where your bio teacher said that, probably to put this point, that to also get rid of any overriding infection. Is it clear, Sahel?
Yes, sir.
So anyways, your viral common cold, even if you do not take anything, common cold on its own gets healed in 5 to 7 days. Okay, so just by, if you just keep staring at the moon, your common cold will be vanished, because immune system ultimately will win over common cold. Okay, it's not a lethal virus, but doctors give us antibiotics to help help the immune system. Okay, now that's also a very, very debated thing in the field of medicine and biology, especially. So researchers don't agree with this misusing or overusing, overexposure of
Yeah,
this
that kind of like
antibiotic.
weakens the immune system in a way, right?
It's not it does not weaken the immune system, it strengthens the bacteria. There's a
Oh,
difference.
all right.
Our defense does not get weakened, but the enemy becomes strengthened, because the enemy knows what are we going to use to kill it. So what happens is, people never complete the dose of antibiotics. The problem is not the doctor give antibiotics, the problem is we are kind of people. So if you have high fever and a runny nose, you take cetirizine, you take paracetamol, and you take antibiotic, you feel good. Next day, after 2-3 days, no one takes medicine, but the doctor has given you an antibiotic course for 3 days or 5 days or 7, it's odd days always. But after 1 day, we will leave it, or after 2 days, we will leave it. So we do not complete the course. Now, what happened is, if there were any bacteria in our system, all of them are not wiped out, even after getting exposed. So it's like, if you show your weapon to the enemy, you better kill the enemy, so that the enemy does not go back to its own place and tell everyone about the weapon, and then they come prepared. Simple rule, right? But we show our enemy the antibiotics, which is bacteria in our body, and then we leave it. We don't kill all of them. So next time when they replicate because of mutation, if anyone gets antibiotic resistance gene, that bacteria will proliferate in our system, and the next time we'll get a bacterial infection, it will be difficult for us to treat it with antibiotics. And that is what we have done in the last 50, 60, 70 years, since Alexander Fleming discovered the first antibiotic, penicillin. Now we have the same bacteria. Earlier, one drop of penicillin could wipe all the bacteria present on your study table, let's say. They were just killing like this, zoop, zap, zip, all of them died, because they did not know what to do with antibiotics. Now in 2022, many bacteria have acquired resistance against our antibiotics. So what is going to be even bigger challenge in upcoming time is a bacterial pandemic, where the bacteria is resistant to almost all our antibiotics. Now we will not be able to kill it at all. Okay, and bacteria spread, they spread, and their symptoms are very, very severe. So that's what everyone is scared about. So this horde, this race of finding new and new antibacterial drugs, new antiviral drugs, is driving the medicine field crazy. But there's no end to it. We will keep finding antibiotics, they'll keep getting resistance. Okay, so we have to think about it a little bit. Anyways, but that's what humans do. They're optimistic. Yes, Arpit, please.
Sir, we had a question in our exam. Sir, it was
Yes.
like why the plague is also known as rat flea. So
Why the plague is also known as rat flea? Because it's transmitted through rodents, through these rats. The bacteria, Yersinia pestis, it stays in the rodents, and it just transmitted by the rodent. So actually, when in Europe, plague was a big issue. Plague wiped out villages after villages, towns after town in Europe, because when Europeans found that, oh, you can put underground sewer system, they made big sewers to get cities waste out of the cities, and the cities were all clean. Cities all of a sudden became very clean. The roads were good. You have high standard life, but they forgot you also have to take care of the sewer, right? Because
Yes.
in those big spacious sewers there'll be rats living, and the rats started breeding like crazy. So at one point of time there were more rats than people. So people were living so there were more rats underground than the people above the ground, and when they got infected, they transmitted among themselves, and then they came contacted with the food of the human, grains, things like that, and spread the virus, spread the bacteria crazy. So that's why it's known as the rat flea.
Okay, sir.
Okay, very well. So let's begin. So today I'll be first talking about so what you will do is a common cold and other viral diseases. I think common cold is the one that you have to figure out. Mostly all other viral diseases also spread through the same. One viral disease we will do in detail, which is AIDS, but it's a fatal disease. So we'll start some important diseases now. So I will start with malaria today, and it is a disease caused by malaria. Is going to be asked in your both in your entrance and boards, not for the disease only, but for the mechanism, because we know about it. But it comes under diseases. What is malaria? What does malaria spread through?
Mosquitoes.
Okay, and what it is caused by?
Protozoa.
Yes, protozoans. So it's spread through mosquito and caused by protozoa. Do you understand the difference?
Yes, sir.
So in malaria, the causative agent. What is the causative agent?
Protozoa.
But what protozoa? Protozoa is
So there are three
Female
types,
anopheles.
like Plasmodium, Plasmodium. But
it's
basically there are three types: Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium malaria, and Plasmodium falciparum.
yes, there are 4 types basically. NCERT does not tell you about one, but just remember it can be asked. Plasmodium malaria is not the most common one, but it's named malaria, but it causes malaria. All other malaria is the name of the disease. So Plasmodium again is the genus, malaria is the species. So Plasmodium malaria causes malaria as a disease, but Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium falciparum, this is the most lethal one and causes malaria in most of the countries. And the last one is Plasmodium ovale. Okay, so all these 4 are different species of the Plasmodium that causes malaria, but mostly the mechanism of infection remains the same. So I think, can you all see this picture? This is from your NCERT. You can open this in your NCERTs as well. Now this is the mechanism of infection. So first, we all know that malaria spreads through mosquito bites, right? So is dengue and chikungunya. But what is different between dengue and malaria? Or dengue, people call it
So
dengue.
dengue is viral.
Dengue is a viral disease. Okay, and what about chikungunya?
Where it is also a viral disease.
It is also a viral disease. And malaria is a protozoan disease. Now, which mosquito? So what is mosquito here in malaria? So this mosquito, what is this?
Anopheles mosquito.
Yes, it is
Female.
yes, it is Anopheles, and it all only female. Why only female? Why not male? Why female? Male mosquitoes cannot spread malaria.
Male mosquitoes are like vegetarian or something, right?
Vegetarian. Okay.
No, something like that. I remember
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember it correct, but you don't know what you remember actually. So and what is Anopheles? So Anopheles, let's say female. So he says male are vegetarian, which means females are non-vegetarians. So what is the non-vegetarian diet that they are having, the females?
Blood.
Blood. What are they? Why are they? So what do they do with the blood? Why do mosquitoes suck our blood? Do only females suck the blood in all mosquitoes?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Why? So in the same species, it's not very common. I think I don't know of an example where the males are vegetarian and the females are non-vegetarian. Like in biology, you can never say that it can never happen, but I have not come across any species where male and female show like nutritional dimorphism. They are different in their nutritional regimes. So here also it's not the nutrition. Okay, so both males and females, for their nutrition, they rely on small flowers, nectars, the grass flower, small grasses, nectar. So nectar is what they feed. Female mosquitoes, in addition to that, they also suck blood because they keep their embryos in the blood, human blood. So the mosquito embryos develop in human blood. Okay, so that's why only female suck the blood, because only they raise the embryos. They have the embryos. Do you understand, everyone? So males are just, you will find male mosquitoes in the garden. They'll just be going to flower and sucking the nectar. Okay.
Sir.
Yes.
Sir, I just checked it. Like it was written there that the females have like a capability that they can pierce it through the skins, like not
Yes.
the
So
male.
that's, yes. So for males, if I can make the face, let's say, so for females there is this proboscis. Okay, like this. It's like a sting. So this is very important to pierce the skin. You can also see it here. Here, can you see
Yes,
that?
sir.
But if you look at males, males have a softer proboscis, which is like this, like a butterfly. So they cannot pierce the skin because they don't need the blood. They don't feed on the blood. Even female mosquitoes need that blood majorly for their embryos. So they cannot penetrate. They go and feed on the nectar. So you're right. So this needle kind of proboscis to pierce the human skin and go to the blood vessels is only present in female mosquitoes. That's correct. Thank you so much, Arpit, the contribution. Now, these Anopheles female mosquitoes act as a vector. Okay. But a vector which also is a host vector. So there's a difference between a host vector and a mechanical vector. So a host vector or a carrier vector, both are carrier vectors, but just a host vector is where the pathogen spends some part of its life cycle. So let's start with this. Let's say this is the first thing where a mosquito bites a human. Okay, now in this case, this human is a diseased or healthy?
Healthy.
Okay, so this is a healthy mosquito, a healthy human. Now a mosquito bites a healthy human. Now the question is, where did this Anopheles female mosquito got the plasmodium from, and how does this plasmodium goes into the human blood? We will talk about it in subsequent steps. But let's say a female Anopheles mosquito bites a healthy human, and second step, it injects parasites, which is the plasmodium here, and the stage at which so this plasmodium also has many stages. One of the stages called sporozoite. Sporozoite is the infectious stage of plasmodium. Okay, infectious state of plasmodium is a parasite, and the first organ where these, so it's injected in the blood when a mosquito bites us, but it does not start replicating in the blood. It somehow dodges through all the immune cells and somehow reaches the liver. So it's the liver where they first starts replicating. It's a safe place for them. Okay, so they go and start replicating in the liver. Till then, till this time, you do not know that you have been infected with a malarial parasite, and you will also not show any symptoms. After some time, they will start coming out of the liver, and this is all happening in the human host, remember? So this part is happening in the human host. So third phase is the parasite reproduces asexually in the liver cell. So in this liver, there is an asexual reproduction of Plasmodium. This is what they can ask you. So in human, the Plasmodium reproduces or multiplies asexually. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
And then when their number is enough, now you know if it is an asexual reproduction, technically all the Plasmodiums are clone of each other, right?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So they are all clones of each other, and they are like millions and millions in number, and then they start coming out from the liver cell by bursting the liver cell, and they are released into the blood because liver has a hepatic portal system of blood vessels. They can very easily from the liver directly come into the blood. And this is where this fourth step, this is where you start getting the symptoms for malaria. And all of this from the time of biting and the malaria parasite coming into your system, pathogen coming into your system, till you get the first symptom. It takes around, it depends on person to person, but it normally takes around a half, like 16 to 24 hours. So if you are bitten by the mosquito in the evening, mostly you get bitten by mosquitoes in the evening. Why? Because in the evening when light goes away, these female mosquitoes, you know, come out and start looking for human blood. During the daytime, you will not find many mosquitoes, right? Have you ever thought of where do they go during the daytime? In the afternoon, in the morning, where do they go? And they all of a sudden starts coming during the at the evening time for dinner, for feasting on the blood. You know, where do they go? Where do all these female go? Because males anyways don't come and bite us. So where do these female go? Where can they go? What does an animal do? You are biology students. When they're not looking for human, what are they looking for?
Nectar, food.
Yes, males, right? They are there in the grasses with the male looking for nectar and reproducing. You understand?
Yes.
Yeah. So then parasites reproduce asexually and they start coming in the blood, and then they start reproducing again in the RBCs. So the question is, what is the primary target organ for malaria? So the primary target organ or the first target organ is liver. Okay. So liver is where they first infect. And what is the secondary where they show symptoms? RBC.
RBC.
So they start reproducing in RBC then, and the moment they will come out of RBCs, they will start killing the RBC. They will burst the RBCs. Now you all know that RBC, it's very easy to get into a RBC and reproduce there and kill it without your immune system knowing it. You know why? Or without RBC itself doing something. You know why? You have studied about lysosomes, haven't you? In the cell, there are lysosomes, and if a cell is infected, it can do suicide, right? It can kill all the virus or bacteria inside it and just kill itself. But do you know
Yes,
that
sir.
but in case of RBCs, what is the problem? So RBCs are nucleus devoid cells. They don't have a nucleus. Fully mature RBCs, which are circulating in our blood, don't have a nucleus. So after they are formed, they have a protein reserve on which they survive. That's why every RBC has a life span of around 3 months, out of which it only spends around 1.5 months in the circulation. Rest 1.5 months or 1 to 1.5 months goes in its production only. So 120 days is the life of RBC. After that, it will die because it does not have nucleus to keep doing the transcription and making protein and keep sustaining itself. So it is like a car with no driver. Okay. So there's no one controlling or regulating an RBC once it is formed. So that's why these parasites live very happily and replicate in the RBC, and then they come out bursting these RBCs. And this, when they burst the RBCs, they produce a toxin. And this toxin is called hemozoin. The word hemo is associated with blood. So it's a toxin which is produced in the blood. And this hemozoin, when it comes into the system, it comes in periods. So for some time they replicate. And after every around 48 hours, 48 to 72 hours in malaria, patients who are suffering from malaria, they suffer very severe chills. You know that? There's a cycle of suffering through chills and fever. So they will feel all right for some time. Then when the evening will come or on an alternate day, they will get severe chills. That periodic symptom in malaria is because of this periodic release of hemozoin when malarial pathogen infects RBCs and bursts them and release hemozoin. So it's like today they infected the RBC, they will replicate, then tomorrow evening or day after tomorrow morning or afternoon, they will in a very synchronized manner burst many RBCs and release hemozoin. So our system will get under a toxin attack and will get that chills and fever again. Then after some hours, you will do the treatment, you will give paracetamol, drips, glucose, all of this saline water, the person will feel better. It will keep feeling better for another 12, 48 hours. Then again, another cycle of hemozoin release and another chills and high fever. Everyone understands this?
So this gets released in the RBC.
This gets released in the blood when the RBCs are burst open.
Okay.
Whenever the hemozoin is released, that time the person will get high fever.
That time, the person will get high fever and chills. Yes.
And
there
then
can be a
regulated by the medicine, then he or she will feel normal. Then again, when the RBC is again bursted, then it will continue like that.
Yes, so it's not like the person will feel totally normal because the body is already infected. First time this hemozoin will be produced, body know that, oh, we are under attack. So a baseline fever and a baseline symptoms will always be there, right? The person will not feel all of a sudden very good that for 48 hours you can go and play football, then come back and get admitted because hemozoin is going to release. So the person will be down and beaten throughout. But what I'm saying is there is a periodicity in severe symptoms, severe chills and fever. Fever will all of a sudden rise up. You will not understand that, okay, yesterday he was feeling good, it was very mild fever, he was feeling weak, but all of a sudden in the evening the fever went to 101 and the person started shivering. So that is because of hemozoin release periodically. Okay, Fatima?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. And so this cycle continues, and some of these sporozoites, okay, which are reproducing asexually, after a few days, because remember, any pathogen, biology has evolved for sustaining, for survival. Now this pathogen cannot keep doing it forever, because at one point of time malaria is going to, either the immune system is going to win or the pathogen is going to win. Even if the pathogen wins, do you think it is a win situation for a pathogen? If Plasmodium wins over our system, what will happen to us? We will die. People die of malaria, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that for any pathogen, for any even for a COVID, for a virus or a bacteria or any pathogen or a protozoa, killing the host is the main motive? What is the main motive?
The virus do like replicate.
To increase its number, to
Yes,
increase
sir.
its own number and survive. But here, if the malarial parasite wins and takes over our immune system, we will die. Is it a win-win for malaria?
No, because then afterwards malaria, parasite will also die.
Exactly. So what it needs to do before the system collapse? So you are infecting a system where the system, if not treated properly, can collapse. And if treated properly, then you will collapse as pathogen. So either way, what you want to do before the system either collapse or gets treated, what a pathogen would like to do in biology.
Replicate.
It's replicating already. It's replicating. That's why all these hemozoin secretion and
It would
everything is
find a
happening.
new host.
Yes, perfect. It would like to spread to other hosts. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you are corrupting a system. So you are working in a system, you are corrupting it, and you are siphoning some funds. How many of you have seen I don't know, Shawshank Redemption? Is the movie. Anyone has seen Shawshank Redemption? It's the highest rated movie on IMDb. It's a classic.
Yes, but I'm not seen it, but yeah, kind of know
Okay,
what's
so okay, if you're not seen, then it does not make a point for me to say that. But let's say, so there's a person who's siphoning funds, okay, and corrupting a system. He knows that either he will get caught, like system will understand that the system is being cheated and they will find that something is going wrong, or the system will collapse. Before that, what you would like to do, whatever funds you have siphoned, you would like to put it somewhere where you can just now go into another system and start doing the same thing again, right? That's how
Yes.
the ideal hackers or hijackers or ideal heisters work. So this is also an ideal like situation where what the pathogen would like to do is, it knows after a few days some of these porocytes, when they are reproducing, instead of just copying themselves, they develop into their sexual stages, into the gametes. So there is a male gametocyte and a female gametocyte that is produced from this sporozoite. Okay, so a subpopulation develops into sexual stages, gametocytes, and that is happening in the RBCs. Now these RBCs are not killed where these sexual stages are present. Why they are not killed? Because there is still a possibility that again any mosquito can come, the same Anopheles mosquito, and can this time bite an infected person. You understand? A person who is already suffering from malaria, if a mosquito comes and bites the infected person, what it is getting, apart from it will also get sporozoites, but that's not the motive. The motive is that these gametocytes will go into the mosquito. Yes?
Sir, but the probability of this happening will be very low, right?
No, even if one gametocyte, like two, it's actually very high. It's on the contrary. If I think it's very low, it's actually very high, and it happens almost every time. It's never like a mosquito bites an infected person and does not gets gametocytes, because we are talking about millions and millions of RBCs here. Thousands, even thousands get, and thousands of million from million, thousands is like 0.01%, right? So even if the
Yes.
probability is 0.01%, you are getting thousands of RBCs with gametocytes in it, gametocytes of Plasmodium. Do you understand, Arpit?
Sir, will it not affect the same person again?
Will it not affect? Yes, if the mosquito which is biting, so I'll tell you about, once we complete this cycle, I'll tell you about how this biting mechanism works. But if the mosquito that is biting is also containing sporozoites, so it will add on more sporozoites to the system. But it's like the house is on fire, you put another flame in it, it's already on fire, right? So it's okay. The system that's collapsing is collapsing, but here what the pathogen wanted is to get out of the system so that it can infect more hosts. So it gets out through this mosquito, which is a vector. Now this time the mosquito bites an infected person, gets these gametocytes, and inside the mosquito, when the female mosquito takes this gametocyte through during the blood meal, fertilization happens inside the mosquito's gut.
Does the mosquito, the female mosquito, when it bites, does it takes all the gametocytes?
How can it take all the gametocyte? It cannot take all the gametocytes, right? Because it's not sucking all your blood. You have 5 liters of the blood in your body, and gametocytes are scattered everywhere in your blood, in your body. So, and mosquito is biting locally, right? It's biting here. So whatever blood is present here in that capillary, you have gametocytes and sporozoites all over your body because blood is spread all over your body, right,
Oh.
Fatima?
Yeah.
So it just need to take gametocytes, male and female, so that they can fertilize in the mosquito's gut and can give rise to sporozoites again. So the sexual reproduction of Plasmodium happens in mosquito. Is it clear? In human, there is asexual reproduction, rapid multiplication, infecting the host, first the liver, second the RBCs, and causing symptoms. Then making gametocytes in the human and then passing it on into the mosquito through mosquito bites, and then doing sexual reproduction in the mosquito gut and in their salivary glands. In the salivary gland of the mosquito, these sporozoites are stored. Okay. So a mosquito which is infected by Plasmodium itself does not have severe consequences of it because it's a vector that is carrying it. So the pathogen cannot start killing the mosquito also and start killing humans, right? That way it is at loss. So it has to negotiate with some. And it has happened that the host in which, this is called a two host system. So malaria, mechanism of infection in malaria is a two host system. And why we call it two host system? Why not mosquito is just a normal vector here? Because it's doing more than just carrying the pathogen. It is also allowing the pathogen to reproduce sexually in its system. So the pathogen is actually dependent on mosquito for its survival. It's not just dependent on mosquito for getting carried, also for survival and completing the life cycle. So sexual reproduction, sexual life cycle happens in mosquito and non-asexual happens in human. So they are always present in the salivary glands of an infected mosquito. And then the next time, so this is 6th, 7th, and the next time this infected mosquito goes to a healthy person, bites, and the same cycle begins again. And now coming back to the biting mechanism. So mosquito, whenever they bite a human, female, whether it is Aedes for dengue or Anopheles for malaria, what they do is, you know that blood has a property that when it comes out of our blood vessels, it clots.
Yes,
Have you ever
sir.
seen?
Yes.
One drop of blood on a table or anywhere, if it falls from, if you get a cut or something, the blood drips, it clots very fast,
Yeah.
coming in contact with atmospheric air or oxygen. So it clots. So when a mosquito is sucking that blood, there are chances that that can clot in its proboscis only, right? In its sting. And that
Yeah.
is not good, right? For mosquito. Mosquito will not like that blood to clot, whether in its system or in its proboscis. And if any one of you have killed a mosquito with blood in it, you see that inside that mosquito, the blood is very much liquid. It's not clotted. In fact, when you kill the mosquito and the blood comes out, that blood then clots after some time.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah. So how does a mosquito keeps the blood, keep it away from clotting or do not let it clot? By putting some anticoagulatory factors, same which our body does. Why blood never clots in our body normally? Because we keep it in a non-clotting. There are non-clotting or anticoagulatory factors which protects us from clotting. So to do that, first the mosquito, when it bites the human, it releases those factors which are there in its saliva. So it releases some saliva, lubricates the whole proboscis and the region where it's biting locally. So in that whole region, the blood will not clot, and when it will suck it, it will come like a thin orange juice very quick. So it will not clot. In the abdomen where it's storing, of course, they will not allow it to clot. Okay. So when they first bite, it's not like they bite and start sucking, because none of you asked that if it's sucking the blood, how is it giving us the parasite, right? If you suck the blood, if you are sucking something from the straw in a glass, if you're drinking a liquid, how will you put your saliva in that water or something. You're just constantly, the flow of water is one directional, right? Unless and until you start blowing into the glass,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So similarly, when a mosquito bites, it first blows, secretes its saliva into our system. That's where it transfers the sporozoids and then starts sucking. Make sense,
Yes, sir.
everyone? Okay. So look at this cycle. If is everything clear or anyone has any doubt?
Sir, like when
Yeah.
the mosquitoes are born, sir, they are not the vectors for the malaria.
When they are born,
So yes, sir, the newly born mosquitoes.
what do you mean by they are not the vectors for malaria?
I mean, like they cannot cause malaria, right?
Yes,
Because
a
they also
native.
have to be infected, right? So that they can
Exactly,
further.
exactly. So this cycle goes in loop. Okay, so somewhere the first anopheles malaria, first anopheles female had to bite an infected person. So but the point is, these gametocytes can come in a mosquito. Like, this is the question: if all the mosquitoes to begin with, none of them had the malarial parasite, where did it come from? Right? The malarial
Yes.
parasite, did it evolve or first get into a mosquito or first get into a human through a non-mosquito way? That's something we're not very clear about. At least I am not very clear about. So I'll try to figure it out and we can discuss this. But it's a very good question. But yes, mosquito which is freshly bred. So you know that mosquito eggs are bred under the water layer.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So it inherently does not contain the Plasmodium pathogen, as far as I know.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Yes, and out of these four, falciparum is the most lethal. It is the cause for major malaria cases in India and also around the globe. So falciparum causes the most lethal symptoms. And also you should know that around 90%, more than 90% of malarial deaths are reported from Africa. And I'm talking about the global cases. So Africa, there's a huge problem of malaria. That's why when I was teaching you the genetics and evolution part, I told you, remember that we are studying about sickle cell anemia, right? So many humans in Africa have started being heterozygous for sickle cell gene, because if you are sickle celled, if your RBCs are sickle celled, the chances of malaria decreases. So they are actually selecting, and that's a beautiful way to understand evolution. Those humans are selecting one diseased condition to protect themselves from the other disease condition which is more fatal. So sickle cell, if you are heterozygous for sickle cell anemia, remember heterozygous people were normal or they used to show symptoms for sickle cell? HbA, HbS, the genotype, no one remembers now.
So normal?
Yeah, they did not show phenotypes, right?
Yes.
But what is happening there? Half of their RBCs are prone to become sickle cell, right?
Yes.
Or some kind of deformity. So even if it's not very gross and not all the RBCs are deformed, where the person will become so anemic that it will start dying. So if it's a compromise, it's a delicate balance that I will have some of my RBCs sickle celled just to protect myself from malaria. Now it does not protect completely, but even when malaria happens, you know that it will not spread throughout the blood very fast because it can only recognize the normal RBCs, not the sickle cell RBCs. Now, isn't it amazing, right?
Yes, sir.
That over the time, humans, and and specifically a region where malaria is a big problem, humans are evolving to tackle this in nature. This is how evolution happens, right? So this is right. It is evolution, adaptive evolution, right in front of our eyes happening. So is malaria clear, everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The periodicity is also clear to you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So now I would, there are some more worm diseases caused by worms. So in the similar line of study, I'm giving you a homework to read about few diseases which are ascariasis. I will tell you, it is caused by ascaris. You know ascaris, the
Yes, sir.
roundworm is called ascaris. So ascariasis, filariasis, it is called by filarial worm or Wuchereria bancrofti. So you just have to figure out the disease, the causative agent, the symptoms, and which tissues are targeted or affected. Okay, for these you do not have to do the how they are diagnosed or things like that, but if you can do very well, but since it's not in your syllabus, so even if you know about the causative agent, the tissue that is affected, and for how long, like it's lethal or non-lethal, just that. So filariasis is also known as elephantiasis. Anyone has heard of this disease or this term?
Yeah, like
Yes, sir.
your
Yeah.
like
Why
body
it is
parts
called?
like large, right?
Sorry, the lower limb, like the
Yeah, limbs like large.
legs. Yes, so legs swell up because the lymph nodes are affected in these limbs, and the leg becomes so swelled up that it looks like the limb or the leg of an elephant. So in a human, it looks like an elephant leg, and in Hindi, it is the technical translation of this term elephantiasis. They call it hathi pav. The disease is called hathi pav. Pav means pair, and hathi is elephant, right? So elephantiasis, it's actually filariasis
Sir, do we
only.
have any cure for it?
Like we can make the person survive, and the treatment, if it's early stages, again you can start killing these filarial worms by medicines, but it's not very fast, it's not very reversible. Sometimes by that time, when you cure the disease, there are other damages that have happened in the leg, like tissue damage, blood vessel damage, the some part of leg is not working that good, so that's there. So if you say that cure means coming back to the normal stage, right? So
Yes,
I'm
sir.
not very sure to what extent. I'm sure that we cannot come back to the normal stage 100%, but we can make the person survive and not get killed by the pathogen.
Yeah, but sir, still they cannot walk, like they cannot do anything on their own.
Yes, right. So even if they can walk, they need support. You know, if the swelling keeps going, it will not become completely normal. The leg is very well like before, you can go and run. So because I told you, the lymph nodes get so severely affected, the tissues, the muscles, the blood vessels, everything gets so severely affected that sometimes there can be irreparable damages, and you cannot remake everything in the leg, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So ascaris, filariasis you have to do, and also do ringworms. Okay. Now there is a trick with the ringworms. It's called ringworms, but it is not caused by worms. These two are caused by worms. Okay. Ascariasis and filariasis. Wuchereria bancrofti and ascaris both are worms, but ringworms is caused by fungi. Be very careful when you're studying this. You know what are ringworms? They're like lesions, fungal infection lesions on the skin. So they are caused by two kind of fungi, trichophyton and epidermophyton. The word epiderm or epidermis means the outer skin layer. Okay. So these are the fungi that cause ringworms. It's called ringworms, I don't know why, but it's not caused by worms. So you have to
Sir,
figure out,
like,
yeah.
do they form any ring-like structure?
Not if you think a ring looks like this, right? A
Yes,
ring
sir.
like structures look like this, but in a ringworm the lesion can be of any, it's like skin lesion, it can be anything. So I don't know, I'm not sure why they are called ringworms, but there are many things in biology that don't make sense because they were named at very early. You know, butterflies are named like tiger, common tiger. So it's like they're not tigers, right? But they're named common tigers, common mormon, leopard, like that. And sometimes, how many of you know about flying fox? What is a flying fox? There's an animal called flying fox. If you Google flying fox, you will figure out that it's not a fox, it's a bat. But it doesn't look, it's so big and huge that people, when they named it, they thought that it's a fox that's flying because the snout looks like a fox, but it's not a fox. And the most weird one, and my favorite, is silverfish. You know, silverfish is an insect.
Yeah.
It's an insect which is present in old books. So sometimes a very old book which has never been opened in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, 10 years, if you open it, there will be small insect that will run out of it, and they're called silverfish. So, and then there is one fish called zebrafish, which is a
So the
fish.
silverfish looks like a silverfish. That's why it is called silverfish, probably.
What is a silverfish? What do you mean by it looks like silverfish?
It is silver in color, and it is looking like a very extremely tiny fish.
I don't think it looks like fish at all. It is an insect. It has
Yes,
6
yes,
legs.
sir.
I mean,
If
with
it is a
naked
arthro,
eyes, it does. Like you
Yeah,
can't
like
really see its limbs.
okay, you mean like if you
they
see
have
it,
a
the structure is
scientific
like this and it's silver, but it has tiny
Yeah,
legs.
yeah,
Maybe.
it's not very visible, you know. You need to like have very good glasses for that.
Okay, great. So probably you people understand why it's called silverfish, but I still think, you know, in biology we name, like, so there is a zebrafish, okay, because it looks like zebra. But the point is, first you figured out there is a zebra, and then you figured out a fish which looks like a zebra stripe, so you named that fish for zebra. Similarly, there is a catfish, but you never. So why can't be cat called the fish cat? You know, because it looks like that fish. So I think this is a classic example where you said that this insect looked like a fish, so it's called silverfish, but it's not a fish. Anyways, so be very careful with these names. Similarly, you must be knowing about blue-green algae, BGA.
Yes, sir.
You know, they are not algae. What are they?
Bacteria.
Yeah, they are cyanobacteria. So, okay. Anyways, so you will do this part on the similar lines, everyone?
Yes, sir.
These diseases. Okay,
Yeah.
and come to me if you have any doubts. Now, let me start with some. So till now, we studied and discussed about some diseases, vectors that cause disease, etc. And there's one more thing which I wanted to tell you, and you have to do. We did this 2-host system, which is malaria. You know, there is one host system also, and the example is amoebiasis. Amoebiasis or amoebic dysentery. That's also in your NCERT. It happens due to a pathogen called
Housefly.
ant amoeba histolytica.
Sir, I was talking
Housefly,
about the carrier.
yes, housefly is the carrier. So when I say it's caused by, you have to name the causative agent. Similarly, in exam, if they ask what causes malaria, if you write Anopheles mosquito, the teacher has all the rights to cut your marks. And you cannot say, no, but Anopheles causes malaria. But what causes malaria is not Anopheles, it's Plasmodium. So what causes amoebiasis or amoebic dysentery is ant amoeba histolytica. It's an amoeba, it's a big amoeba, ant amoeba. Histolytica term comes from, again, let's come to the words, biology. The word histo is for tissue. Histology. Can anyone tell me what does the word histology means?
study of
Study
tissue.
of tissue.
Perfect. Histopathology. The word patho means diseases. So all the diseases associated with tissues or which can be diagnosed through tissue um, through looking at tissue samples, that's called histopathology. Sometimes they ask you to donate some tissue samples so that they can understand what kind of infection or disease you are having. So that's called histopathological analysis. And the word lytica, lysis or lytic, what does it mean? Degrading, damaging, digesting, eating up. all the word are for Litica. So one example is in class 11th, you have studied about the juices that are secreted from your pancreas. What were they called?
Pancreatic juices.
Yes, but what were they doing? They used to break down nutrients, right? So they were lytic. They were lytic enzymes, hydrolytic enzymes or hydrolysis. So this word tissue degrading or tissue digesting. So this pathogen can eat up tissues, can degrade tissues. That's why in amoebiasis, one of the symptoms is blood coming in the stools, because it infects the intestine, start eating up the intestine lining, because of which the intestines go under severe toxic shock and an infection, and dysentery happens. Okay, the body tries to get rid of everything, but it cannot get rid of things, because by that time they have started eating up the tissue and they penetrate inside the intestine. From there, in severe cases, ant amoeba histolytica can also migrate to other parts of the tissues, and in normal conditions it is spread through flies, like Arpit said. Okay, so fly are just the mechanical carriers. Ant amoeba histolytica does not rely on flies for completing its life cycle. Even if it gets um, transmitted through any other mode, where like let's say some lakes are infected by ant amoeba histolytica, and recently there was a case I was studying where this teenager went to a lake to hiking. He went hiking and trekking, and he took bath in a lake there in that jungle, and the water in that lake was infected by ant amoeba histolytica. So few ant amoeba histolytica got inside his nose, the nasal cavity, through the water, and then they started eating up the tissue and reached the brain, and they started uh, killing the brain. That's where he got to know about it, and he was severely infected by ant amoeba. So ant amoeba were eating the brain tissues. Now I don't know what happened afterwards to that case, because it was just reported. So it can also go through infected water, food into the body, and can do the same. Do you understand, everyone? So normally when amoebiasis happens, we can kill it. We can give medicines, because it's happening in that intestines. It's easier. You can give like medicines through mouth orally, which can go and kill these amoeba cells, and you can get rid of the infections early on. The moment you get dysentery, rush to your doctor.
Yeah,
They will
what
figure
if
out.
in the digestive path, for example, for the boy, it was in his nasal cavity. So you can't give oral pills, right? So what?
Yes, that's where it becomes very difficult. People die of very severe and amoebiasis infections. There you cannot do it as easy as it, and also dysentery will not happen in that case, because the nasal tissues got infected and it went to the brain. So the intestines are not infected there. So there will be no dysentery. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So read about this as well. This is an example of one host pathogen. Only human is the host. And here also it's a very so normally ant amoeba just multiplies and stays and comes out with the fecal matter of the human. Next time a fly sits on an infected human's fecal matter and brings those pathogens to a food or water, then it gets contaminated. Another human consumes it and gets amoebiasis. That's how the ideal pathogen should work. Sometimes it starts behaving irrational, because if you start eating up the host tissues and start killing the host tissue, you ultimately will die, right? And you also do not have a two host system. So you're killing the only host where you can flourish. So that's not very well understood, and this is a very, very serious problem. So people are trying to figure this out. A lot of research is going on this. Anyway, so you have to do it yourself, and for the rest part, let me start immunity today. Anyone has any questions? I'll stop here for 1 minute to address questions on disease. You can ask me questions in the next class as well when you read up on these diseases. Any other question in anyone's mind? Yes, no? Okay. Immunity. What is immunity, people? Are we all immune? This word immunity was, I think everyone used this word, immune system, immunity, virus.
Sir, it's the ability of the body to protect it against all types of foreign objects, bodies, sorry, objects.
Yes, you're right. Even it can be objects, it can be non-living things as well. So we call them antigens or pathogens. So body has a ability to fight against invading pathogens, and so they are like the soldiers of our system, where our system is defined by our boundary of the skin. So anything, if it enters inside our skin, either our immune system has to allow it, because there are many bacteria and other microorganisms living very happily in our intestines with our permission. Okay, so we've given them the visa, so they work for us, we help them with shelter. You know, all of us have a gut microbiota. It's called flora and fauna of the gut. So there are microorganisms which are living in our gut, and they are very important. You know, when we get a dysentery, a normal loose motion, let's say someone had a food poisoning, you ate something that your body did not like, so you will have a loose motion. And with loose motions we lose lots and lots of liquid, but we also lose the very important microbiome that we were actually growing and taking care of in our gut. They are important. So sometimes doctor advise you to eat probiotic drinks or have dahi, right?
Yes, sir.
Have a probiotic Yakult kind of things or dahi, or take vitamin B12 capsules. Anyone know why? See, we have to understand, no? We cannot just, doctor says, okay, take this, you take that. You have to understand why. If it's biology, then I should know it. I'm a student of biology. I have biology as a subject. What happens after a loose motion? What happens is these important bacteria also get washed away, and it will take another 2 3 4 days to re-establish them in our colon, in our large intestine, right? So till that happens, we need vitamin B12 complex, because, or we should take it because these bacteria were synthesizing some very crucial metabolites for us, which we were not getting through diet. So they synthesize something for our body which we absorb. In return, we give them protection and shelter and nutrition. That's where it's a symbiotic relationship between us and our microbiota. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
So they are living with permission. So our immune cells will not go and kill them. But any other microorganism or pathogen that is not useful to us and is an invader, or we don't like it, will be targeted by our immune system and be destroyed. So very clearly and correctly, as pointed out by, I think, Arpit, write down, it is immunity is the overall ability. Immunity is the overall ability of the host system. It's not just for a human, it's any host system, of a host system, to defend itself, to defend itself against the disease causing pathogens. The disease causing pathogens. Or antigens. Is it clear?
Yes,
Is
sir.
it clear, everyone? Yeah. Now, where does this immunity comes from? What is it? Is it some super
The,
magical power? Yes, yes,
the
sir.
bacteria which is in the intestine, which is very important, what is it called and what is it required for?
what is it called? Yeah, so we have hundreds of different species which are living in our gut. So there's not only one bacteria. Okay, so it's difficult to tell what it is called. So they have all different names. They belong to different genus. They are different kind of bacteria, and they do different things. But what they do is they convert either the toxic things in our system into non-toxic, or they convert something waste and not useful into something useful in our system. One thing which is known and properly studied is that they provide us with, they help us with getting vitamin B complexes, B12 especially B12 complex. And we do not have very, there are rarely food, if I'm correct, there are not many sources naturally available in our food from where we can get these vital metabolites. So they are required in trace amounts, yes, but we do not get it from food. So that's where these bacteria help us, and we are helping these bacteria. Okay, and also these bacteria, their activity, very interesting studies have shown, also in human samples from human fecal matter and from mouse, that during the day they also vary, and their number varies with circadian rhythm. You know circadian rhythm? Anyone? You know what is circadian rhythm? What is circadian clock? So our body has an internal clock, you know that.
Yeah, body
You wake
clock.
up
So
at,
like you like sometimes if you're like having a habit of sleeping early, you'll automatically like wake up
yeah,
early
so
even though you're
very
like
well studied with sleep and hunger. But apart from sleep and hunger, you know, your blood pressure also at different times of the day, it goes up and goes down. Your hormone secretion, your other enzyme secretions. Also, you don't tell your body to secrete or to do certain things. Your heart rate, your heartbeat goes up and down, and during different times it's different. Our body temperature is different during different times of the day. Okay, this is all controlled by an internal clock which is called circadian clock, and every living organism on the planet Earth have a circadian clock which is 24-hour clock, because one day on Earth is 24 hours. So we behave differently, our body behave differently during the light, which is the daytime, and during the night, which is the dark time. Okay, these bacteria also behave with the circadian rhythmicity. So it's very interesting to, if you want to figure out more about it, I'll just tell you one thing. If you know people who die of heart attack, there is a high zone where heart attacks occur. Mostly all heart attacks occur between, most of the heart attacks occur if it is natural and not induced by something, like for example, if a heart attack or cardiac arrest happened because of over exercising, that can happen anytime when you are over exercising. But if it is happening because of the heart condition, the problem, weak heart or old age, mostly it happens between 3 to 5 or 6 a.m, very early in the night, or you can say very late in the night, very early in the morning or very late in the night. There's a trend, because that is the time when our blood pressure, or it starts increasing. And when we sleep, when we after 7, 8, 9, after the dinner, our blood pressure decreases, our heart decreases, even the body temperature. You know, when you have the maximum body temperature, it also fluctuates. It's not 37 degrees Celsius throughout. Towards the evening, when you are finishing the day and settling up before the dinner, the body temperature is the highest. All cells are done, not afternoon, Zad. Afternoon, it can be because of heat, if you are walking in the heat, but due to circadian rhythm, it's before the night falls. Okay, do you understand, everyone?
So what's the reason? You repeat that. For
What's the
the
reason for that? The
cardiac
reason is
arrest during the period.
because that is the time during which the blood pressure increases very steeply. The blood pressure, like the heart, the chances of cardiac arrest increases very steeply with the heart beating fast. That's where your blood pressure is the highest, during the 24-hour clock.
Got
naturally.
it, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. And many things, for example, melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone which helps us to sleep, put us to sleep. The moment there is dark, so in organisms which live in wild, it is very well regulated and can be seen. Human melatonin is all messed up because we live in constant light conditions. For example, now it's dark outside. At my place, it's night time, but I'm still sitting in a well lit place because artificially we have inverted bulbs, right? By this time, all the birds outside, all the reptiles, all the mammals, cows, buffaloes, donkeys, dogs, cats might have slept because their melatonin secretion starts rising the moment sun goes down. But for me, I'm awake. I'll only start sleeping when I'll switch off the light and go on the bed. So I have tampered with my circadian rhythm with respect to sleep. We all have, correct? Because
So
we do
that I
not,
can sleep with light.
I was gonna
you can
ask the
sleep.
same thing.
Yeah, it's not like melatonin is the only factor that put you to sleep. You can sleep with light even when you are like, you need sleep. Your body needs sleep after one time, but melatonin regulates sleep better. It's not like you cannot. So for example, people who cannot sleep, they are given these melatonin strips. So if you keep it on your tongue and close your eyes, of course you have to sit and lay down and close your eyes. You cannot sleep while playing badminton, right? Even if you're playing it at 12 in the night or 1 or 2 in the night, if you wake up and starts walking and doing exercise, you will not be able to sleep howsoever high melatonin is there in your body, because you are doing something. You are overriding that system.
So what is how does like sleepwalking happen?
Sleepwalking is a rare disorder where the brain is active. Our brain is active during sleep. Sleep is very, very
Yeah, it's like
interesting.
basically you have like the unconscious, conscious, and subconscious. So when you're
Yeah,
sleeping, you're in your unconscious. So
your
what
subconscious, your
yeah,
subconscious when
sorry,
you're
it's
sleeping.
subconscious. So
Yeah.
what essentially happens is when you're sleepwalking, like you could say like it kind of leaks into like consciousness, and subconscious is kind of more into consciousness, and like that you start like moving or like doing stuff that you would do when you're not sleeping.
Yes, most of the things that Matthew said are correct, except for the fact that we are not conscious. We are still subconscious when we are sleepwalking. Okay, we
Yeah,
are
yeah.
we are in a state of sleep only.
Subconscious essentially when it's like something in your subconscious is not like even only when it's attended to, if you like be aware of it. If not, then it's still like kind of feel like you won't know it.
You actually know. You can know things even. There's a gray zone with
Yeah, so only if
sleepwalking.
you like if you only like pay attention to it, only you can like know it. That's what I try to say.
I think you can form memories if you have attention. Learning and memory can happen in conscious state. During subconscious sleep, you can alter those, rewrite those. I don't know if you can make new one, but because, and interestingly, just to share with you, so the neuroscience, the part of neuroscience that I am working on in my PhD, the lab in which I'm a PhD scholar is sleep and adaptive behaviors lab. So we are studying sleep. We are studying different reasons and how sleep is regulated apart from circadian rhythm. Like you said, you can sleep, whenever you want, even with light on. Now that is something that puzzled scientists. People used to think that sleep is a result of circadian. It's only under circadian control because, and it is under circadian control. For animals, they sleep and wake with light and dark, but it can also be adapted. It's plastic. You can change your sleep. You can decide not to sleep. You can decide when to sleep. You can even decide to sleep in the daylight. Okay, so many factors. For example, hunger. If you are starving, you will not sleep, right? But in that condition, if you are sleep deprived, it's a different kind of sleep deprivation. There are all sorts of things happening in sleep, and sleep is different from anesthesia, hibernation, estivation, unconsciousness, all these states. Sleep is a very special state of brain that we are trying to figure out. Okay, we'll talk about sleep. I can just go on for hours on sleep anyways. So I think we have run out of time. Cool. So I'll start with the players of immunity in the next class, and I want you to go back and read about two things: adaptive and innate immunity. So there are two types of immunity in animal system. One is called innate, as the term suggests. Innate is by birth, you get it in your hardware when you are born. And one is adaptive. So this is like your firewall of the Windows, which is already there in the Windows pre-installed. And this is like adaptive, which you, depending on which kind of viral attack you want your computer to be protected from, Trojan horse, malware, whatever, then you get specific
Antivirus.
antiviruses. Yes. So adaptive is what we get after birth. We develop it, and adaptive differs. Both innate also differs, but adaptive will be shaped by what kind of exposures you have to pathogens. Now, someone who has been exposed to chicken pox, like if any one of you had chicken pox, you have adaptive immunity against chicken pox. Someone who never got exposed to chicken pox may not have an adaptive immunity